week 5 picks. Week 4?
Week 5. Week
Week
5.
5?
This is only our 4th week doing picks, but it's week 5.
It is week 5. I feel like every team is like 2-1 or 3-0. Like, how many teams have had buys or are having buys this week?
The
Seems like
Miami
a lot.
Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Hurricanes on their second bye this week. Thank God, because I don't know if my eyes could handle another week like last week. Whew, that was brutal. Terrible.
And
We need to get a week off.
Bowling Green's also on a bye, unfortunately.
Terrible. Dude, I'm glad I jumped on it, even though you didn't tell me to. I had a terrible week, but I listened to Will on Bowling Green. He didn't do it this week. He thought they had a chance against Kent State. Spoiler, they didn't.
Well, I didn't say that they had a chance. I guess in so many words I did say that, but what I really said was that was the only game they had a chance of winning the rest of their schedule so that they might have some fight and desire to get more than one win this season. But
Nope.
Hey, you were on it. It's not like I bet against them though. So you were kind of bragging to me that Bowling Green lost the spread so easily. And I was happy for you. I was happy that I could have give you that bowling. It's not like I bet Kent State on the other side.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are presented by Canes Insight, and we both were on Miami to cover 30 points last week. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it at all. I actually gave my reasoning. This is why they won't. They have absolutely no reason to. But Phil just said you have to do it because of Jimmy Murphy. So
yeah, essentially. And you know what? Honestly,
Jimmy Murphy didn't come to play.
He didn't come to play, but I'll tell you what, if Jimmy Murphy would have shown up, our run game probably would have looked better. Our whole team would have just looked better. That was a dreadful, dreadful football game. Somehow only beating Central Michigan 17-12. But let's be honest here, Will. I'm not doing so hot. And all you fellow loyal listeners out there of the College Football Pick'em Pod, last year I was good and Will was okay. This year I'm 20-22. Will's 21-17. I'm just having a rough go of things. I just went 5-8 last week. Really, if anybody wants to get any good advice from me, go listen to my NFL predictions. I'm currently ranked number 5 in betting pros for NFL. So maybe like I've shifted to the pros and I'm not as good anymore in college, but like I don't understand what's going on. I had such a good read on college football last year. I have no read on it right now, I feel. So Will, you're going to be helping me through this week. But if you want my NFL advice, I correctly picked the Lions last week. I picked the Packers week 1. I mean, I was like 4-0 money line. Just like underdog, straight up. So it's been a good year NFL, not a good year college, huh, Will?
Well, I've had a decent year. I think I was 14-9, and then last week I went 7-8. Again, that Miami one that I didn't really want to do. So I'm going to call it 500 for me last week. And I had some brutal ones. Somehow Michigan State Northwestern going over a late touchdown by Northwestern that didn't matter in the 4th really bummed me out there. Somehow Michigan State got 30 points. We can talk about that in a little bit. I don't know how that happened. And then go ahead.
I was going to say, is there any more brutal though than my freaking Houston cover?
Oh, that was bad.
That was brutal, guys. I mean, I had 20 on that. I was so confident in that. I was ready to like lock that one up. They go up 28-14 in the first half, blow the lead, losing 31-28, kick a field goal to tie it. And then the guys can't tackle with 6 seconds left in the game and give up a touchdown rather than letting Tulane line up to kick a game-winning field goal. I had them plus 5.5. It was like, oh, I just was screaming at those kids. It's like you hit him both so hard that he just stood there. Oh, it was brutal. That was a sign of things to come for me last weekend because it never got better.
Bona fide bad beat there.
It really was. I mean, it never got better. Let's see. I mean, like I was on Michigan and they were so close to covering. I mean, they were only 17.5 points away from covering. They were really right in that game the entire time from start to finish. So that was another really bad beat,
But
really
they went for 2, which got the over done for me in the 3rd quarter. So that was helpful. I was worried it was going to push at 43, and they actually went for 2 to push it to 44. So I was all for Michigan there. I had 2 bets on the Oklahoma State-Texas game. Both of them failed. One of them was a $10 money line bet on Oklahoma State, and they only lost by 6 points, which I think by kickoff it was a 6.5 spread. So they did end up covering, but I had the money line. It just didn't work out. And then the over for that was at 73. I was a touchdown away. There were 5 turnovers in that game. It was at 41 at halftime, so it was on pace for a while, and a lot of running the ball, which I didn't see happening. So that was a game I was excited for. Unfortunately, went 0-2. Other than that, I felt like everything went according to plan.
Yeah, Louisville was a bummer too going into FSU. That was a bummer. I mean, it was a late touchdown by FSU to put them up by 11. Louisville was winning in the fourth quarter of that game, so that was kind of a bummer to lose that one.
Yeah, that wasn't the one we totally read wrong.
Yeah, we didn't really read it wrong. It looks worse on paper. UCF, what the heck was that?
That's what we say. Once a year, they're just gonna let you down, and It was against Pitt 2 years in a row.
I mean, I'm back on UCF again this week, so I really don't even care. But
is Pitt not the weirdest team
ever? And I won't lie, I was at the beach during the UCF Pitt game, and so I was listening to Pitt stream because I wanted to watch I wanted to hear what was going on in the UCF game, and it wasn't, it was hard to get on my phone. I was probably watching Miami, maybe. But as I'm listening to it, it was unfortunately a Pittsburgh announcers stream. It was a live Pittsburgh or home Pittsburgh game, and their color commentator is one of the most obnoxious announcers I'd ever heard in my entire life. He wanted a guy thrown out of the game for roughing the passer twice. And I'm just like, that's not how that works. But he was saying these things as if the refs weren't doing their job because they hadn't thrown this guy out of the game. And he did things like that all throughout. So I was listening to that, plus knowing I had UCF minus 12, plus knowing okay, it's a good thing that Pitt's in the Coastal. So if Miami beats Pitt, it looks a little bit better. But still, I'm like, man, if I wasn't rooting for UCF to win and cover minus 12 before, I sure as hell am now. And even at the end of the game, he was like, game's over. And there was 8 seconds left. And UCF called a timeout or something, so they still had a play left. It was so ridiculous. And the guy, he's this is what he does for a living. This wasn't a college kid who was just announcing it. I just have to get that off my chest. Pitt's color commentator, whoo, not a fan at all. Not at all.
Pitt's weird, man. That's all I can say.
I know. That's you saying Pitt's weird brought me on that tangent. And yeah, it's a huge win. You beat UCF at home. That's a great win.
It's a massive win.
That's huge. But man, just hearing how hard that guy celebrated, I was like, man. And even before the game was even over, it was just oof. Anyway, don't listen to Pitt streams. Who's Pitt got this week? Who's Pitt got this week? Do we even have Pitt on is Pitt on our schedule here?
Yes, they are playing because
they play Delaware.
And I kind of want to take them. I kind of want to, but I know they're going to win by a field goal. So
what is it, 47?
It's 47.
I think that's what I have it at. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's at 47.
14 or something.
No, I think it's at 47. Let me make sure that I'm right here so that I can get this one off my. Oh, I'm sorry. It's at 28. I saw 27 this morning. So it's at 28, not 47, but still 28. Like you said, Pitt's a weird team. I could see them coming out beating UCF, and they play an overtime thriller against Delaware, the Blue Hens.
I had to talk myself out of so many bets this week. I really have very few bets. There are very few games I like, and even the ones I have, I don't know. This week seems weird. It just seems there aren't any really compelling matchups where I strongly feel one side. They all seem kind of middling. We'll get to them. There's one score I'm just going to repeat, 42-17. And I'm just going to say that, and it will come up in a lot of games. So just get ready for that.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
I didn't make about 5 bets because of the score of 42-17. And Pitt, Delaware, that's one of them. They wouldn't cover with 42-17.
Yeah, it's 25 points. You're right. That's brutal. Well, because as I admitted, I've been much better at NFL this year than I am at college right now, Will. I have a couple bets written down, but I'm very wishy-washy on a lot of them. So I want to hear your opinion before I lock them in. Although this first one, I'm confident in. And I don't know if you're on it, but I think that this one goes over. I have Penn State, Maryland over 60. And for Big Ten football, that sounds like a lot of points. But we saw Maryland's offense early in the season, what they were able to do, how many points they were able to put up on the board. Yes, they were playing against weaker competition. We thought Syracuse was going to be better. Syracuse ends up not being very good. But right now, these teams are averaging 71 and 62 points per game, which is ridiculous. Okay, and I know that that's obviously not going to happen in this game, but I think that Maryland's defense is going to be kind of exposed here. And I think that Penn State has a chance to still put a ridiculously high number, maybe 49 points. Maryland comes out, they put up, even if they put up 17, if it's 49-17, not 42-17, if it's 49-17, we get the over. It's 42-17. Well, there's your number. We don't get the over.
I'm worried. I'm worried. I'm telling you, for whatever reason, the score just zapped in my brain on all these bets I was looking at, and it talked me out of so many of them.
Do you have a read on this Penn State Maryland over? Am I completely wrong?
I like where your head's at. I think that's a good way to lean. Trying to think of a concern just would be that Penn State, we don't really know anything about them yet. The Pitt game is a rivalry game that you can kind of toss out. I don't know if we learned a whole bunch from that game other than that Pitt plays them close sometimes. And then I guess you learn that you can't trust them. They don't really have that confidence yet because their first two wins are pretty much nothing cupcake wins. So what do we really know about Penn State? If you have that feel, it seems right. They obviously have an offense that can put up points when they're playing an inferior defense like Maryland seems to have had. So yeah, I like the lean. I would lean that way, but that would be my only concern is that there's a lot of unknowns with that Penn State team.
I hear you. I mean, Maryland, after their two big wins early on, they lose 20-17 to Temple. And I think that's turned a lot of people off. So I could see people actually betting down this number, though at 71% are on the over. It just feels like this is a game where it's just bound to go over, in my opinion. It's just bound. I have 15 on it, not a full 20, but I am confident in this one. This is one I don't need Will's opinion. I don't need Will's help here.
Well, I'm with you if you want it. I'm not hopping on it, but that's the right way to go, I think.
That's good. Don't hop on it because then it's an auto L. It's brutal. It's really terrible. I don't know what it is about the two of us trying to work together, but we just don't make it happen. Do you have any of those Friday night games or the Thursday night game, which is Navy at Memphis?
I do not. I struggled to pick one. I think the Penn State covering against Maryland was the closest I got. But again, I don't know enough about Penn State to pull the trigger on that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump over to Saturday then. And one of the first game I have here on my slate is Texas Tech at Oklahoma. Oklahoma number 6 now. I have an over under here at 71.5, and I'm liking the over. Am I crazy?
You might be crazy because 42-17 doesn't get you there.
42-17 doesn't even get me close. 52-17 doesn't even get me there. But you think Tech's only putting up 17 points here?
No, I'm just saying that as I'm shoehorning this score in because I was about to take Oklahoma the spread here, which I think is at 27 now, and 42-17 wouldn't cover that. So with the over under, I actually would lean under on this one. I think Texas Tech, you think of them as that classic Big 12 school. Maybe you have Patrick Mahomes still in your brain. I don't know if they're that volatile of an offense anymore, and I could see Oklahoma just kind of going like 49-10 on them. I don't see, and Oklahoma's defense doesn't have to be that good, though I do think they are at least improved from last year. So I don't know.
I think they put up over 50 in this game, Oklahoma. I really do. I think they put up over 50, and Texas Tech lost to Arizona 28-14. But I think that this is a game where you're going to be playing from behind. And we kind of saw it last week in the NFL when Baltimore was like being more aggressive against Kansas City. When you have to score with a team, you get more aggressive. And I think Texas Tech will be more aggressive in this game than they were against Arizona. So if there's a 4th and 3 from the 50-yard line on the first drive, they're going for it 100% of the time. And so I personally believe that that's going to make this game a little bit faster paced, and Oklahoma's not going to stop scoring, and they could put up 56 points. I mean, they could seriously put up 42 points in the first half. Like, they seriously could against this Texas Tech team. So I understand where you're like a little worried, but I think that just because the pace of play is going to be faster here, Texas Tech will get their 17-21 somewhere in there. And then I think that we don't see field goals from Oklahoma. I think they go 56 here. And if it's 56-17, I go over.
There you go. Hey, I like it. That'll be a fun one to watch. What did Oklahoma do last week? Did they have a bye also?
Oklahoma did what did Oklahoma do last week? This is terrible, man. Oklahoma last week, they UCLA. No, they didn't play last week. They didn't
No,
play
that's what I was
Saturday. The
thinking. I
last
was
game
like,
is UCLA,
why
September
is
14th.
Oklahoma so far out of my brain? I'm trying to think about
Mhm.
what I saw them do. But maybe that's even a good reason to lean over. They've had a whole week to prepare for this Texas Tech defense.
Yeah, I'm going to go 15 on the over here of 71.5. What are you doing with the minus 27.5?
I'm not doing anything with it.
Oh, I thought you were betting it.
I'm not. It's one of those ones I was going to bet, and then the score 42-17. It seems like a reasonable score for this game, and so I had to lay off of it. Just because if Oklahoma gets out to such a large lead so early, they might pull their starters. They might take their foot off the gas. A little bit how Wisconsin and Michigan went this week. I mean, Wisconsin was up, 28 to nothing at halftime, and they only score a touchdown in the whole second half. And they could have scored more. They could have kept going, but they didn't need to. And so that game ends up 35-14 when that score is not at all indicative of the stomping that Wisconsin laid on Michigan. And I fear when teams are able to pretty much ice the game in the first two quarters, they're more likely to, not be as effective in the second half. And that could easily happen where even if they end up at 42 points, that would be kind of underperforming for Oklahoma on offense. So
I agree.
But
that's why I don't think they're going to end up at 42.
I don't think so. I think you've explained it really well. I think your reasoning with how Texas Tech is going to be aggressive because they know they need to score. I think that's a really good point. So good luck with that. I'm not on this game, unfortunately.
That's okay, man. That's okay. I'm going to stick in the Big Ten here. I'm going to go to Northwestern at Wisconsin. This is another one I actually.
How about you just tell me all your bets? I won't say any of mine.
Well, do you want me to? I'm going down the line. Do you have this game?
I don't know what the line is, but I mean, there are a handful of games that kick off at noon. So let me just hop in on one of them. I got BYU minus 2.5 at Toledo. Now, Toledo, I don't want to disrespect Toledo because I think they're a good team. But if you look at who these teams have played so far this season, BYU has played Utah, Tennessee, USC, and Washington, all Power 5 teams. And yeah, they've gone 2-2. They've had, some overtime battles, but I think they are battle tested. They have seen tough competition. They've played up with tough competition, even beating USC. And Toledo hasn't really played anybody. They've played Kentucky, who they lost to, and then Murray State and Colorado State. And so, I think Toledo is a formidable team. I think BYU will play Toledo and kind of have a breath of fresh air and be like, wow, this is gonna, like, things will go easier for them in this game. And at 2.5 points, I think that is enough. And I know they're on the road, but I'm liking this BYU team this year. And I know they didn't look good against Washington, but Washington is a really good team, especially at home. So I don't really blame BYU for that. And I'm not really punishing BYU all that much for that, tough road loss. So I still think they can go on the road and beat Toledo by a field goal. So I got 15 on that.
See, I am blaming BYU because I had them +6 last week. And I
told you that was not a smart bet.
And the week before that, I wanted to bet them, and instead I jumped on the one bet with you. What bet did I jump on with you?
Boston College.
Boston College ended up losing it instead of taking BYU and would have had the BYU win. So I'm off that game today. I do see where you're coming from there. Toledo, I do think BYU is a better team than Toledo. Should have no problem winning by a field goal, but I'm going to stay away from it because I'm scared.
Especially BYU coming off of such a bad, and again, it's not a bad loss, but they didn't look good against Washington. They're going to want to right the ship, especially, those first 3 games going 2-1 against those 3 schools. They had to have a little bit of confidence for that to be kind of taken away from them against Washington. I think against Toledo, they might be able to use it as a way to right their ship and, get things back on track.
Well, let me ask you this, Will. You're a big Pac-12 guy growing up on, Northern California, Stanford guy. Are the Huskies for real this year?
I don't even know. It's very hard to say. I think they are a good team. Not a great team.
Mhm.
That's usually them. That's been them the past 5 seasons. They
Yeah.
made it to the playoff once, and they and
Yeah,
that
it's a tough loss to Cal, but they've looked good otherwise. And I know they've beaten Eastern Washington, BYU, Hawaii, but they went to BYU and won that game handily. They beat Hawaii bad. And I don't know, man. I mean, they look good. They really do. So
I
the
think so. And they have
Pac-12.
a new quarterback,
Mhm,
Jacob Eason. I think
mhm.
he's like kind of he's getting it together. They might, who knows? They might be the best team in the Pac-12. We really don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Washington State just lost to freaking UCLA
That was
last week.
amazing. I was at a
Woo!
casino in Nevada watching that game live, and it was so much fun.
That is an embarrassing loss. That really is. UCLA is a really bad football team this year. And Washington State, man, what was that? 67-63 too. That's a crazy high score.
I
Um,
almost wanted to bet UCLA to cover the 7.5 against Arizona, but another one I had to lay off. Not because of
yeah,
42-17, but just because I can't get that excited over one win. But I just, for whatever reason, I can just see that one win just sparking life into that UCLA team. And from
sometimes
here
that's all
on
you
out,
need.
they're confident, they're letting it fly because they just scored so many points in such a short period of time. If you're a player on that team, you have to walk away with some sort of confidence that, hey, we can actually play football. We can actually score points. And not that Washington State is some, amazing defense, but neither is Arizona. So I know we're jumping way ahead to the Pac-12 after dark. That was one I was flirting with that I am laying off of.
Yeah, I avoided that one. Let's stay early morning. Can I announce a noon game or do you want to announce yours?
Go for it, man. I only have 8 picks today. So
Okay.
you
Well, I want to talk
go for
about
it.
I only have two other noon games that I want to discuss. And they're both in the Big Ten. One, I have Northwestern at Wisconsin. I have Wisconsin covering 23.5. Look, I know this could be a letdown situation. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. Northwestern is so bad this year. They have no offense. Hunter Johnson cannot get it done. He threw for 88 yards last week against Michigan State. I know Michigan State has a good defense, but Northwestern's defense did not show up in that game. They lose 31-10 against an offense that does not score points. I mean, they just don't, like, Michigan State doesn't score against anybody. I think Wisconsin, this is one of those games where they could score 4 touchdowns and win this 28-0 and look bad doing it. Because Northwestern, yes, they normally play Wisconsin tough, but this is just not a good Northwestern team. They're just not. I mean, this is a Northwestern team that like has regressed really badly. If TJ Green was playing quarterback, I think they'd be really good. But I've watched a lot of what they've done, and they have no offensive flow. And seeing what Wisconsin has been able to do to teams all year, and I know that they've played bad teams, but they just played Michigan, and maybe Michigan's not that good. I just like them to cover this 23.5 because I think they win this game 28-0, and that's fine. And they could be even more, but I would not be shocked at all if Northwestern does not score in this football game unless it's a defensive or special teams touchdown because their offense is just stagnant. It's just bad. I'm only putting 10 on it, but I feel like I should be more confident in this. I feel like I should put more.
I am on this one also. I have 15 on it. Basically everything you said. There's a very good chance Northwestern gets shut out. Wisconsin pitched a shutout its first 2 games of the season. The first half against Michigan was a shutout, and then they, then ended up giving up 14 points. But there's no reason why they can't have another shutout here. So I also like the over, though, saying that, which is crazy, I know. And I don't think I'm like it's one of these ones I might do or might not. You can talk me out of if you want, but I just think with this Wisconsin team that they actually have all the tools to contend in the Big Ten and actually beat Ohio State and win the conference and go to the playoff. Do you agree with that?
I do. After this week's performance, I think it says more about Wisconsin than it says about Michigan. They're blowing teams away.
Wisconsin is really good.
Yeah.
Again, maybe Michigan is terrible, but I don't think that's the case. I really believe just watching that game and how efficient they were running the ball and just even throwing the ball. that Cone guy. He's great.
He's great.
So much better than Hornibrook.
Yeah.
Like they are light years ahead of last year's team.
Yeah, it's not even remotely close. And we always talk about this because they're one of my favorite teams to bet. If they're a 35-point or higher favorite, I always would take the other team because up until this year, they were some ridiculous number where they'd covered maybe like one in like their last 15 times as a 35-point or more favorite. This year, they're good enough to do it. And in past teams, we've seen like, well, maybe they laid off. Maybe they didn't. This year, they could lay off and still score touchdowns with Jonathan Taylor. And I mean, they could just run all over this Northwestern team. And then they can pass all over this Northwestern team. It's
That's
God,
why the over is so enticing because the over-under is set at 46. Yeah. And that's honestly, I could see Wisconsin putting up 49 points on their own. The shutout is the only thing that worries me. I can see the 42-0 being a very viable score. But
I could see 42-0 too.
Scores just once. If Northwestern scores 7 points, I really feel good about this over. So what I'm thinking of doing is putting 15 on Wisconsin to cover the 23.5 and then put just $10 on the over. Just because if either they let their foot off the gas, which allows Northwestern to score, or they keep their foot on the gas and then they're scoring themselves. Either way, I think there will be points. It's a little risky, and I don't love it, but something's telling me this Wisconsin team's different, and they know that they've got to improve a committee that wants to put two SEC teams in,
especially with how the rankings are right now.
Exactly, and how the AP poll is currently. That's a good point. Why not blow out Northwestern when you can? Why stop at 42 points? So it's risky, but that's what I'm going with.
I like it. I like the risk here. The last game here that we could talk about at noon, and this can be real quick, Will. Our boys from Rutgers are playing Michigan this week.
I couldn't do it,
right? I wanted to so bad, but Michigan looked so horrible. They looked so horrible. And I know Rutgers they were within 2 touchdowns of BC. Like, that was not an easy cover by any means, but I think BC is like a wreck right now. They are in a lot of trouble.
They're trash, man. I remember saying, what if they are a Rutgers?
They might be. They are
14 points better than a Rutgers. So 30-16 or something?
30-16, and they did not look good doing it. There was some serious stress there. I mean, Rutgers was winning that game, and they had that epic celebration where their one player like rammed into their other player. What is it? Punched the guy in the head or something? It's fantastic. Yeah, but I wanted to do it. It's 27.5 right now. Any other team playing against Rutgers, I'd probably do it. But Michigan, after how bad their offense looked this week, I know it was against Wisconsin, but I gotta lay off. I gotta stay away from it. But I wanted to bring it up.
I remember seeing it and just being like, no, I can't do it. I'm so mad. But
27.5.
Oh man, that's another one. That was another one. 42-17.
Yeah,
doesn't do it for you.
And not for nothing, Rutgers' offense looks much better this year.
Not for nothing. You're right. That's definitely not for nothing.
So it's tough to pick against them because last year you could almost guarantee they weren't going to move the ball past the 50. This year they're getting the ball past the 50.
Yeah, I could see them putting up 17 points to Michigan's 42.
Yeah.
So that was one where I had to lay off.
I just wanted to bring that one up. Yeah. We always got to talk about Rutgers any chance we get.
Right.
We got to get Rutgers to sponsor this,
especially on the Bowling Green bye week.
Yeah. We do no Bowling Green, no Rutgers. This might be an O for week for me, Will. It really might.
But we still do have one of my favorite other one of those teams. This is a noon game. Kansas at TCU. And the spread is 16 points. But I'm actually going to take the points. I'm going to take Kansas plus 16 at TCU. Man, just saying that hurts. But I'm only putting 10 on it. And I have one worry that I'll get out of the way, that it could be a bounce back game for TCU after their loss to SMU. But I do think they can still bounce back with a 10 or 14-point win. That they don't need to blow out Kansas. And I think Kansas has kind of turned it around since losing to Central Carolina. And I know that's a big since Central Carolina lost.
Yeah.
They stomped BC on the road, and then they have a close game against West Virginia. And so, and I know West Virginia isn't really where they usually are in the ranks of the Big 12, but I don't think TCU really is either. TCU and West Virginia, I kind of put on the same tier of teams that they kind of were in that, just under Oklahoma on that like contender of the Big 12, and now they're kind of rebuilding and falling apart. So, and TCU is better than West Virginia, don't get me wrong, but 16 points it just feels like a lot here. So I'm gonna take Kansas getting 16 points.
You putting 10 on that?
I'm putting 10 on it.
I like that mentality though.
Yeah, and again, this is a barren week for picks that I liked. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of I have $120 bet this week.
My 12:30 here is very busy, so stop me when you will. But we have 2 top 25 matchups here. Virginia going to Notre Dame, USC going to Washington. And then I also am in on this Indiana-Michigan State game, and I'm in on Wake Forest going to Boston College, and Georgia Tech going to Temple. Jeez, this is my busiest slot. And then after that, I really have nothing. So this is my big one. So you can shut me up anytime you want to, but I'm feeling really good about a lot of these actually, and that scares the living daylights out of me.
I don't know what you're playing on. I think I have one of those games.
All right. Well, which one let's start with one of mine, and then we can go to yours, because maybe we can break it up a little bit so you can actually get in there and talk a little. I'm going to start off going Virginia at Notre Dame. Notre Dame looks pretty good against Georgia, and I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. I said that Notre Dame was not going to cover. I said Georgia was going to cover 14 points. Notre Dame only lost by 6. Will, you were on the other side. You had that correct. You were more confident.
I think I saw since we did the podcast when it was minus 14, I took Notre Dame plus 14. It kept going up, 14 and a half, 15 and a half at kickoff.
Yeah.
So, hey, who saw it coming?
Yeah. And so I know the last 2 weeks, Virginia has not looked good. They didn't look good against Florida State. They did not look good against Old Dominion. Looked really sketchy against Old Dominion. Going to Notre Dame, I do think that this is time for Notre Dame to have a bit of a letdown, and UVA has been looking forward to this game for so long that at plus 11.5, I like UVA here, because 28-17 final gets me a cover.
I think it's up to 12 now, or even 12.
Is it up to 12?
I think it really is moving Notre Dame's way.
Yeah, so I would say, here's my advice to anybody who's listening to this now. It is at 12.5. You're right. If you like UVA, keep waiting, because you might get this to 2 touchdowns. People are feeling real good about Notre Dame, and I don't think UVA is a very good football team this year, but I think they're still a good football team, and I think that they're going to catch Notre Dame on a bit of a letdown. Notre Dame's going to come out sluggish in the first half of this game, and I think that UVA and Bryce Perkins, they put up some points early. Notre Dame might actually play from behind a little bit in this game. I do think they end up pulling out this win, maybe by double digits, but like I said, 28-17, and I get the cover. And I feel good about UVA putting up points in this game. You're right, 42-17, I would not get the cover, but I like UVA plus 12.5 now. I was on them at 11.5. I'm only putting 10 on it, but I feel pretty good.
My problem with this game is that Notre Dame at home is usually pretty good. They just play better at home. And then my other problem is Virginia kind of shows up for these big games, and you think that they're probably going to keep this close. And so I'm trying to weigh those two, and I can't land on either side of it. At first, I had 11.5. I was leading Notre Dame, and now it's up to 12.5. And I'm like, well, that's a little high. So I don't know what to do with this game. I do think Notre Dame is still underrated, but maybe people saw them really contend with Georgia and actually have a pretty good shot at winning that game, even in the fourth quarter, once Georgia stole all the momentum in the third quarter. I don't know. That one, this one's really tough. It feels about right where it is. So I'm not on it.
All right. You don't have to be. The other top 25 matchup here is USC going to Washington. The point spread I have here, Will, is 10. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That's what I have too.
Okay. So 10 points. It started at 7.5, but I guess because of how Washington has looked of late, people are feeling really good about Washington this week. A full 2.5 point movement already, and this is Tuesday at 11:30 Pacific time. That's a pretty big move. USC coming off the win over Utah. They're getting a little bit extra rest because they played on, what was that, Thursday night?
It was a Friday night game.
Friday night. So they get like one day extra rest.
The trigger on, but that was one of the ones that I didn't actually put on the grid last week. But I said, man, that USC was going to win that game, and they did.
So what's your thought here? I have a thought, but what's your thought on USC Washington?
I have USC plus 10. I got
I agree.
$15 on it. So yeah, this was one
Ooh.
that jumped out at me as way too high. And I expect Washington to be favored. I expect them to win this game, but 10 points is just too high, especially for a Washington team that when they play ranked opponents, it's usually pretty low scoring games. It's usually, 23-17, 24-20. They don't run the score up on, these teams that are actually competitive. So, and we'll see if USC is competitive. That's not guaranteed either. There are probably a lot of people who watched that Utah game and said, man, USC kind of stole that win from Utah or maybe got lucky. Did you watch that game?
I did, and I have to say it was very frustrating to watch because the officiating was horrendous. And I'm not saying that picking one side or the other, just made it a very difficult game to watch. But USC didn't look that much better than Utah.
Well, here's the thing. If you look at the box score, first downs, 27-16, Utah. Total yards, 457 to 381, Utah. USC rushes for only 13 yards. So they're just big play. I mean, it was just big play, throwing it to Michael Pittman, throwing it to their amazing receivers. What was that? The Fink, third string QB, comes in, and they were just airing it out, scoring quickly. Time of possession was totally in favor of Utah. But I don't really have a problem with that as long as they're scoring. And it's not like Utah was able to score easily on USC. USC's defense held it together, and Washington will be tougher. But I don't know. Seeing USC pull out that win, it was kind of refreshing. And I think it's encouraging that despite all those stats going Utah's way, they still put up more points and they still won the game against a Utah team that at the time was ranked in the top 10, and their defense probably is still ranked in the top 10 or top 15. So I think we might see another, Pac-12 cannibalism here with maybe USC going to Washington and pulling out a win. I don't find that as likely as them covering, obviously. So I'm taking the 10 points, but I don't see Washington just blowing out this USC team, especially now that they might have some confidence and they might say, hey, we lost one game to BYU, which, hey, that isn't that bad. Stay undefeated in the Pac-12 and, give Washington a fight.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I was on USC. I wanted to get your thoughts just in case I was completely overreacting. But it's funny that earlier in this podcast, we say, hey, is Washington for real? And then we turn around and we say, all right, USC plus 10. I think 10 is way too many points. The 7.5 is a lot more accurate. What it started at, I'm surprised so much money has gone on Washington. I'm really surprised.
Yeah, I could see this being 30-23. That's like,
just like
what's the
over 30-20 and we still push.
What's the over-under on this now? Because I'm just seeing this. I'm seeing this as both teams in the 20s, or maybe one team in the 30s, one team in the 20s. Like, I don't think this is cracking 60. What was that? 55.
The over-under is at 59.5.
I kind of like the under there. I just talked myself in to an under in this game. I'll put 10 on it just because I didn't look too heavy into the actual bet, but I need some more bets. And I find that's what I'm doing a lot, is that I'm finding a game I have some sort of a feel on and putting 2 bets on it instead of one bet.
Yeah, one that I'm considering doing that with, but I think I'm only going to go with the spread, is Indiana going to Michigan State. I have Michigan State minus 14 because last week they proved that they can put up points on bad teams, and Indiana's a bad team, and it's in Michigan State, and I don't think Indiana's going to really be able to score. I kind of like the under in this game too, but I think I'm just going to take the spread. I'm only putting 10 on it because it's still Michigan State, and they're going to score 21 points this entire game. But man, 44 is the over-under in this game, and 75% of money is on the over, which I think is very surprising.
Well, maybe the thinking is that Michigan State's offense has been awakened by the terrible Northwestern defense.
Well, and Indiana's worse.
Indiana's defense is worse than North. Yeah, exactly. And so that Michigan State should be able to put up somewhere between 30 and 40 points. And if you get a score or 2 out of Indiana, which isn't asking for too much. Then it goes over. But
Mhm.
I would lean under there for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely where I
like
lean.
I like that more than the spread, just because. Yeah, is Michigan State going to score 30 points again? Probably not. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I'm going to stick with the spread, though. I'm feeling all right about it.
I'm staying off that game. That's just what is Michigan State going to do against a team they know they're going to beat? Like they might put up 10. It might be 10-3.
One of the bets I'm more confident in than I probably should be. I got Temple minus 9.5 against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's going in. I got 15 on it. I was really considering doing 20.
That's a fun
Georgia Tech is that bad. They're horrible. And I know Temple beat Maryland the last time we saw them play, but man, Georgia Tech lost to the Citadel. The Citadel. Like, where is the Citadel? Is that in South Carolina? Is that in Virginia? I don't know. But Georgia Tech lost to them. And I think Georgia Tech is just a really bad football team this year. Going into Temple, who's, I think, a good football team. They're not great, but I think they're good. And 9.5, I don't think is enough. I think that Temple should be able to beat this team by double digits, no problem. If they can slow down Maryland's really high-powered offense, Georgia Tech might not score in this game. I mean, Georgia Tech is a horrible offense.
I think I glanced over this, considered it, and then kind of didn't really come back to it. But yeah, that sounds really nice. It's funny. Anytime you say the Citadel, you think of, wow, what a silly name for a team, and they're so bad. Mm-hmm. But imagine if the Citadel was good, how badass that team name would be.
Oh, it'd be insane. It'd be insane.
It'd be so cool. They were like a Power 5.
Are you hopping on?
No, I'm not hopping on. I will not. I don't want to do that. Oh. I don't want to do that to Temple. They might lose to Georgia Tech if I do that.
We don't need that. All right, my last 12:30 game, like I said, I have Wake Forest at Boston College. ACC matchup. People always say Boston College is going to be good. Boston College always isn't good. I think Wake Forest, they played pretty good against UNC. I know the second half didn't look good, but they were up so big in the first half of that game. 6.5 point favorites going to BC. I think BC is cooked. I think they're done. I think this is a team that gave up because they did not look good at all last week against Rutgers after a really pitiful performance at home against Kansas. I think that had Rutgers been a competent football team, they beat BC last week. And that's real. Imagine if BC would have went back-to-back weeks losing to Kansas and Rutgers. Wake Forest is not even near the same class as them. I think this is a Boston College team that gave up. It's a team that, Anthony Brown and they were talking about all during like the season coming into this. Oh, we can't look like we did last year when we were losing games. We need to be the leaders. We need to hold our heads high. They shake their heads and lower their heads more than any team I've seen in college football history. They look demoralized after every single incompletion as if they lost the Super Bowl. I think that this is a team that is going to go down to Wake Forest and just have no reason to fight back. I like Wake. It's 6.5. If it was 7.5, I might not take it, but I'm getting a full touchdown here, and I'm feeling like I gotta go with that. Just ride the cold hand here and just take Wake minus 6.5. I got 15 on it.
Ride the cold hand. That should be the name of this podcast because that seems to be exactly our line of thinking, how we find the teams that are very bad. And people don't want to – you'll never see the spreads reflect how bad certain teams are. And this could be a case of one of them. I'm not fully on the Boston College is done forever kind of train yet, but this might be the game that pushes me over because what is it, 6.5? Yeah, that's
6.5.
That's pretty good.
It's a good number.
It's a good number. So I think Wake gets that done. That's pretty good. You found some good ones. I scanned through a lot, and I laid off Wake BC just because, man, the ACC right now is such a mess. I could see BC. Like, Wake is a team that everyone's begging for to be ranked, and then I could see BC just taking that away from them.
Yeah, see, I think Wake is actually a little for real this year. They beat some teams that don't really get credit in terms of a national scene, but they beat Utah State in a tough first game. They beat UNC, who at the time still looked like they were going to be good until they go out this week and lose to Appalachian State, which maybe Appalachian State's as good as they are when they beat Michigan.
And then one of their wins almost lost to Central Michigan.
Yeah. True. True. But all right, and then an interesting one. I mean, you don't have anything else at 12:30, right?
I got well, you mean 3:30, and I got a 4 p.m.
Oh yeah, see, I'm looking at this and it keeps on staring me in the eye as Pacific time. But go ahead, let me hear this 4 p.m.
4 p.m. I've got Kansas State at Oklahoma State, and I've got the over under is at 60. So I'm putting 15 on that to go over. I just think this is low for a Big 12 conference matchup, and you might think that Kansas State is kind of an exception to that rule of the Big 12 shootouts, but they aren't really. They've put up at least 31 points in each of their 4 games this season, and Oklahoma State's defense is pretty bad. So I think Kansas State should be able to score. I think Kansas State actually has a chance to win this game. I think the spread is at 4. It's one of those ones where I could see whoever has the ball last, and it's going to be a touchdown on either side of it. So I'm staying away from the spread here. But I do think that 60, that's not even a shootout number. That's just a pretty middling number for the Big 12. So I think this goes over pretty easily. And I'm not sure what I think I did have 20 on it, but I lowered it to 15 just in case something goes wrong. But Oklahoma State's offense should absolutely be able to score. So
yeah, I think that this is more because historically Kansas State's not one of the higher scoring teams in the Big 12. Even when they're really good, they don't.
Right, they are,
put up the
and they run the ball, and they have usually a better defense than the other teams. But this year they've been putting up a lot of points, and I know they played Bowling Green and Nichols, but they've been tossing the ball like crazy. And Oklahoma State does the same thing. So I think 60 is, I mean, when we think about it, it's Kansas State, Oklahoma State is at 60, and then USC Washington is at 59.5.
Yeah.
It's just, those shouldn't be comparable over-unders, at least in my opinion. So I'm going under on the Pac-12 and over on the Big 12.
I agree. I actually have Oklahoma State -4. I only have 10 on it. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't believe Kansas State is ranked here. I can't believe they're ranked. They're ranked number 24. They've beaten, like you said, Nickel, Bowling Green, and Mississippi State. Mississippi State, they're getting credit for beating Mississippi State because they're an SEC school. That's literally
just like Cal. Cal is ranked 15th because they beat Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's my favorite thing. Cal jumped, 8 spots in the rankings for beating Ole Miss? Will anybody in the history of time ever be rewarded more for beating an unranked team than Cal just was?
It's mainly because so many teams above them fell, and they're the only the only Pac-12 team that's still undefeated.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. But yeah, Kansas State is somebody. They're ranked 24. I think Oklahoma State's the better football team. Oklahoma State might get out to a little bit of a slow start, but I think their offense is just more high-powered. I like your thinking here of going over 60, but I also like Oklahoma State to win this game by at least a touchdown. Again, another game where there's just not going to be field goals here. This is a touchdown game, and it could be the last team to get it. I'm banking on Oklahoma State to be that last team.
Yes, I was with you there, and then I saw the over-under at 60 and thought I feel way more confident in that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I got 15 on that.
Okay. One game. So that's actually a 7 p.m. game. Well, you called it a 4 p.m. game, calling me out. That's actually a 7 p.m. Eastern game.
Oh gosh. So now I'm looking at the Pacific time.
Now you're looking at the Pacific time because I was looking and I'm like, wait, I know I have games before that, or not really. But this is a 5 p.m. game. I think this is an interesting one. Tell me what you think on this. And we can just ignore it.
I like this. Don't tell me what your play is, and then I'll tell you what I'm leaning, and then see if it lines up.
Yeah, and this might be a game you completely glanced over. Cincinnati going to Marshall. Marshall 3.5-point dogs.
I don't know. Cincinnati is a good team within the AAC, so maybe you have something there. But I mean, are you leaning that they should be like a touchdown favorite?
Marshall or Cincinnati?
Cincinnati.
Yeah, wait, that tells you how I feel about Cincinnati.
Who's favored? It's Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Yeah. Exactly. So they're favored by 3.5, and they should be favored by more, and you're going to take Cincinnati -3.5.
No, absolutely not. I think Marshall's a better team.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think Marshall's the better team. So here's Cincinnati. They beat UCLA 24-14. They lose to Ohio State 42-0. They beat Miami, Ohio 35-13. Marshall beats VMI badly. Ohio, who is their biggest competition right now in the MAC, they beat 33-31. So it doesn't look like a good win on paper, but in terms of rivalry, big game, it's a good win. And they only lost to Boise 14-7, and they looked pretty good in that game. Everybody keeps saying Cincinnati's a good team. I haven't seen it. So really, my gut tells me Marshall. 3.5. You're getting a field goal here at home. I think they're the better team. Probably going to stay away from it. But I just think, people, that if you want to open your eyes to kind of one of those bizarre games, this is a very interesting one where if the name wasn't Cincinnati, Marshall's probably favored in this game.
If this was on Thursday night or Friday night, then this would be a fun one to hop on. But
yeah,
I'm going to be busy on Saturday with all the other games going on. I'm not going to really.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to ignore it now. I just wanted to throw it out there. I wanted to see where you leaned because I just thought it was an interesting line for two.
I would still probably lean Cincinnati.
Yeah, I disagree.
I guess I remember them in that UCLA game. They looked pretty good against UCLA.
Yeah,
and UCLA beat Washington State, so that means Cincinnati is better than Washington State.
Absolutely, by 10 points, by 14 points. Transitive property here, kids. Will, what's your next game that you have?
I've got. I don't know. I added one in late, and I don't really know where it is. I only have 10 on it. Auburn versus Mississippi State. Auburn's 10.5-point favorites. And while I think this Auburn team does have a lot of issues, and they're not going to blow Mississippi State out, I do think it's going to be, I think 2 touchdowns is fair. And so 10.5, I like it there. Especially this is a revenge game, as Mississippi State did beat Auburn last year. And this Auburn team, they know what they have ahead of them in their schedule in the SEC West. So I think they can't overlook Mississippi State here, is I guess what I'm trying to say. They're going to have games where they won't be favored and that they will likely lose. And this isn't one of them, so they have to take their wins while they can. So I think they are more than capable. They really, in the Texas A&M game, they were in control of that game the entire time. Like, it wasn't they owned that game, and they didn't look great doing it, but they were in control of the game, much more so than against Oregon. So for a team that has a win against Oregon and a win against Texas A&M versus Mississippi State, who lost to Kansas State, who is just kind of a middling SEC team, and I know they're at home, but I do think Auburn is going to be able to cover the 10.5. So I've got 10 on that. I don't know when that is, but I was trying to look for kind of a last one to add on, and that I was kind of thinking about it earlier, and just I'm pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I looked at that game. I ended up staying away from it just in case, but I agree with you. Auburn should cover that, no problem. It's just weird sometimes with the SEC. Like, you get an Auburn team that should win that game handedly, and then Mississippi State comes out, takes a 7-0 lead on them, and all of a sudden you go, what's going on here? I don't know. It's just a weird game. I don't know. I mean, Mississippi State just beat Kentucky. Is Kentucky good? Probably not, but still, it's weird.
Kentucky's not that good.
And Auburn seems like they find a way where, I mean, I just took the Chiefs over the Ravens this weekend in NFL, and I got it at -5.5, and the Ravens covered 5, and because they scored a touchdown at the end and then got the 2-point conversion. And I feel like Auburn's one of those teams that kind of lets other teams at the end, like Mississippi State might sneak in a touchdown, and all of a sudden your 17-point lead is now down to 10, even though the game was never close. And it just worries me that something like that happens.
That's totally possible. I think they can get it to over 17 points.
Yeah.
And they'll be more comfortable, especially with losing to them last year. Their eyes will be open.
Yeah. I have 3 more games I want to talk about, and then we're out. First one, Will, and I'm not completely convinced I'm going to bet on any of these.
Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts.
So.
Oh, you do have more. I thought you said you were only doing 8, so that's why I thought we were done.
No, but okay. I talked myself into the USC Washington under.
Oh, so you still have 2 games?
And then that Auburn one I kind of tacked on. So I have 2 more games, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm up to 10. I'm up to 10.
Okay. I'll do the first one then, and then you can go, and then I'll go. This way we gotta alternate here. First one I have NC State going to Florida State. Spread is at 5 points. Florida State's favored by 5. I like the Seminoles, and I know it's a bye week for Miami, so we're not talking about Miami, and I'm sorry to break everybody's heart and now take the Seminoles, but I feel like they've turned the corner. They looked much, much better against Virginia. They looked really good against Louisville for most of that game, and I know Louisville's still Louisville, but Louisville's much better this year. Their first 2 games, what happened is they got out to big leads, and they fell apart in the second half. They've kind of stopped now, and they've figured it out. NC State is just they're not a good football team this year. I mean, they are really hurting from not having Ryan Finley. I know that the record is going to look better than what they really are because they've beaten East Carolina, West Carolina, and Ball State. Congratulations. But they also lost 44-27 to West Virginia. And in that Ball State game, they only won by 11 and gave up 23 points to Ball State. So I like Florida State here at -5. At home, I think that they win this game easily by a touchdown. So I'm going to actually put 15 on this, and I'm sorry, Canes fans, but sometimes this just happens.
Isn't it crazy how quickly things can turn around?
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here agreeing with you, nodding my head. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Florida State, that win, it was like one win against Louisville, and now Willie Taggart might not get fired. Like
they just look so much better.
It was, and it was disappointing too. Not only because we were on it, but because it's Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, I feel you.
They should have beaten Virginia the week before. They outplayed them. They had them beat. They just blew it at the end, like they seem to always do. But NC State's not good enough to keep it close enough to beat them at the end. So, I like Florida State.
That's a good one. I think that's a really good bet. Good on you.
Thanks,
okay, I am moving on to Stanford at Oregon State. And I'm going under 58. Got $15 on it. Now, this one's a little risky just because Oregon State's defense isn't good. It's actually bad. But Stanford has done nothing to show me that they're capable of scoring points, even on a bad defense. Mm-hmm. They're averaging 17.5 points per game. And outside of Northwestern, which Northwestern's defense isn't even looking that good. I mean, they've played Northwestern, Oregon, UCF, and USC. Do any of those scream defensive teams? No. They scored 6 points on Oregon. They scored, I think, 27 points against the UCF. That's their highest scoring game. Mm-hmm. So for them to Oregon State's bad. That doesn't mean they're going to run up the score. But I do expect Stanford to win this game. So if they are not going to put up 30 points, I think Stanford probably maxes out at around 31 points or 28 points, and they win, then under 58 looks good almost every single time. So
yeah, I completely agree. I looked at this game a lot. Stanford's so bad, and Oregon State.
Oregon State could win this game.
They could win this game.
Oregon State wins this game. I don't think it's going to be, 35.
It's not turning that many heads. If they do it too. I mean, Oregon State being a 4-point dog to Stanford shows how far Stanford has fallen.
Mm-hmm.
It's really bad. And I agree with you, though. Yeah, there's almost no situation does this game go over.
So where are these 58 points coming from? Who is putting up? Because Stanford, if they win this game, they're going to win it like 23-10.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Unless, man, I'm starting to fear maybe David Shaw is going to use this game to, run all the plays and work out his offense. But that's not how he operates. He just runs the ball and has his receivers run in straight lines and throws them the ball and has no creativity whatsoever.
He's playing against Oregon State, and this could be a punt fest. That's how sad this team is right now.
This would be a beautiful punt fest. Absolutely.
Your favorite kind.
Yeah. So under on the 58. I guess this is what happens when I don't like a lot of spreads. I just move to over-unders and see if I can find something. And these seem to be feeling good. And then we'll sit here
2 overs
next Tuesday and we'll be like, hey, how'd this happen? How did they score 120 points?
Yeah. The next game I'm going to here, kind of a weird one. I'm going Houston, North Texas. De'Aaron King just announced that he is sitting out for the rest of the season. He's
His
redshirting.
dad announced that he's
Yeah.
entering the transfer portal, but he is not confirmed yet.
Not confirmed that he's transferring, but he is sitting out for the rest of the season. Houston is 7-point favorites going to North Texas. Without De'Aaron King, North Texas is so much better than this Houston team. Houston, the reason they were in any of these games that they've been in, and they've lost some good games recently. Close one to Washington State, close one to Tulane. They lost by 18 to Oklahoma, but they still put up the points. North Texas only lost by 6 to Cal. They got beat pretty bad by SMU. This is going to be a team that's going to really struggle on the offensive end without De'Aaron King, though. I really like that I'm only having to put up a touchdown here. I think Houston, the only reason they were even remotely good is De'Aaron King, and now he's gone. So I got 15 on this. I have North Texas -7.
All right, that's risky just because I don't know. I feel like I've seen so many backup quarterbacks come in and just
backup
be
quarterbacks
awesome.
though for USC, for these big schools. For Houston,
True.
You're not replacing the talent of De'Aaron King with the talent of De'Aaron King. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Who's the Florida guy? Trask. He looked pretty good. He looks better than
I mean,
Felipe.
Yeah, I mean, Felipe Franks is what Felipe Franks is, So, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay.
What's your next game?
Are you done?
I have one more, but I think you and me might be on this one together. So go ahead.
Yes. Ohio State at Nebraska.
I don't have that one, but you said, is that your last game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What
do you like in this Ohio State at Nebraska?
This is my only $20 bet of the week. Ohio State -17.5. Just because Nebraska is still overrated. They just had themselves a dogfight with Illinois. Illinois lost to Eastern Michigan. No. Nebraska is not keeping this close. So, Ohio State just put up 70. What?
This game originally was -7 for Ohio State at -105. So more money was coming in on Nebraska. It has gone up 10.5 points. 10.5.
I'm still taking it.
That's the craziest part.
Ohio State laying the points.
And I agree. I think you're right. I really do. We were saying this before the season even began. Like, why is Nebraska suddenly good? Why are they suddenly good? Like, it's the same. I know that there's a lot of hype surrounding, coaching and quarterbacks. That's how college football works. But it's the same thing as last year. And all of a sudden they come in and they're ranked in the top 25. And I remember us kind of laughing before the season even began, where we're just like, yeah, that's a top 25 team. Like Colorado beat them. Oh, yeah, they beat a top 25 team. But that's not a top 25 team. If you're only beating Illinois 42-38, you're in trouble. You're really in trouble. It's going to be a long season.
Ohio State is what is Ohio State ranked? I think they should be ahead of Georgia. I think they should be number 3. I think you go Clemson, Bama, Ohio State.
The problem is the SEC is just owning the rankings right now. Whether you agree with it or not, that's just what's happening. And right now, the way it plays out is it's Clemson, Bama, Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Auburn,
I would say
Wisconsin.
LSU and Ohio State should both be ahead of Georgia. Like, what has Georgia done?
No, you're right. They beat with Notre Dame.
That's it. I mean, I guess LSU and Ohio State haven't done much either, but LSU beat Texas, and they just looked better. I don't know. It's the old eye test versus the other test of looking at their wins. Actually, I don't know.
Nebraska is 4-12 against the
State.
spread. Nebraska is 4-12 against the spread in their last 16 home games. Just for anybody who cares about that kind of stuff.
I love how Nebraska fans they just bet on their team a lot.
Yeah. That's all it takes. All right, man. Actually, so my last game is Washington State at Utah. And I think one of these teams bounces back, and I think the other doesn't. It's only -5. I like Utah. I only have 10 on it, but I like Utah. I think they bounce back. It's a tough loss to
for
USC.
both teams.
Bounce back for both teams. Utah's the better of the teams. I like them -5. It's less than a touchdown. I mean, I'll take that pretty much any time. So, yeah, I like it.
I considered it. It's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all of our bets for this week. I actually put out 155 of my possible 135. So there are 185.
I'm say you're dipping into negative. You can borrow some from me if you want.
I might have to soon.
And I'll get 10% of all your winnings.
That's it. I've now borrowed from the book. That's not good.
Yeah.
Don't borrow from the book, kids.
How many? Where am I at dollar wise?
I'm doing that for you right now, William. You're banking 120 and only putting out 135 this week. Lame.
So I'm at 155 or 255.
You're at 255.
So I'm up 55 on the season. That's about right.
Yep. Yeah. And you're banking 120. So look at you. You only got to win $80 this week to stay even on the season. I got to win 170. I got to really go off this week. I need a good week. I haven't had a good week yet this season.
And this is at least for me. I think you actually found some gems in there. So, but we'll see. I feel good about the ones I have at least.
Yeah.
A couple of them.
Well, let's see how it ends up going. You felt good about a lot of mine. I like that. Hopefully that means I can finally turn this thing around, get some W's under my belt, and we'll be back next week to actually talk about the Canes and Virginia Tech, which, the Canes better be prepared, because not that Virginia Tech's very good, but I think they're better than Central Michigan, aren't they?
Oh, man. We'll talk next week.
We'll talk about it next week.
Bye week.
We do. We needed the bye week. But all right, everybody. We will see you next week then.